Hello everyone, I am Asima Biswal. Today I will discuss about types of inflation. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel Economic 10. A. On the basis of C. B. On the basis of inducement. C. On the basis of time. D. On the basis of scope. E. On the basis of government reaction. F. On the basis of employment. G. Other types. First I will discuss about on the basis of speed. Okay. On the basis of speed, inflation can be classified as under first clipping inflation, second walking inflation, third running inflation, fourth galloping or hyperinflation. First I will discuss about clipping inflation. It is the mildest form of inflation. Okay. It is generally regarded as conducive to economic development because it keeps the economy away from stagnation. But some economists consider creeping inflation as potentially dangerous. They are of the view that if not properly controlled in time, creeping inflation may assume alarming proportions. Okay, under creeping inflation, price rise about 2% annually. Second, walking inflation. Walking inflation occurs when the price rise becomes more marked as compared to creeping inflation. Under walking inflation, prices rise approximately by 5% annually. Third, running inflation. Running inflation. Under running inflation, prices increase at a still faster rate. The price rise may be about 10% per annum. Okay. Fourth, galloping or hyperinflation. This is the last stage of inflation which starts after the level of full employment is reached. Keynes considers this type of inflation as the true inflation. Under the galloping inflation, the prices rise every moment and there is no upper limit to the price rise. The classical examples of hyperinflation are A. The great inflation of Germany after the World War I and B. Great inflation of China after the World War II. So these are the on the basis of speed. Okay. B. On the basis of inducement. Inflation may be classified on the basis of factors inducing or causing rise in prices such as wage induced inflation, first, second profit induced inflation, third scarcity induced inflation, fourth deficit induced inflation, fifth currency induced inflation, sixth credit induced inflation, seventh foreign trade induced inflation. First I will discuss about wage induced inflation. When inflation rises due to a rise in wages, it is called wage induced inflation. In modern times, trade unions are able to secure higher wages for workers unaccompanied by a simultaneous increase in labor productivity. This increases the cost of production and in turn the price level. Second, profit induced inflation if the producers due to their monopoly position tend to mark up their profit margin, which will lead to profit induced inflation. Higher profits raise the cost of production, which in turn pushes up the prices. Third, scarcity induced inflation. When the supply of goods does not increase on account of natural calamities, the prices tend to rise. This may be called scarcity induced inflation. Fourth, deficit induced inflation. When a government covers the deficit in its budget through creating new money, a method known as deficit financing. The purchasing power of the community increases without simultaneous increase in production. This leads to A rise in the price level which referred to as deficit induced inflation. Deficit induced inflation is more common in less developed countries where due to lack of adequate resources the government resorts of deficit financing to finance its development plans. 5. Currency induced inflation. Okay, when the supply of money exceeds the available output of goods and services, it leads to an inflationary increase in prices. This is a case of currency induced inflation. 6. Credit induced inflation. Okay, then foreign trade induced inflation. When a country experiences a sudden rise in the demand for its exportable against the inelastic supply of exportables in the domestic market, this increases the demand and price level at home. B. Trade gains. Okay, trade gains and sudden inflow of exchange remittance increase the demand and prices in the domestic market. Both these factors lead to foreign trade induced inflation. C. On the basis of time. First, peacetime inflation. Second, wartime inflation. Third, post-war inflation. First, I will discuss about peacetime inflation. Okay. By peacetime inflation, we mean the rise in prices during normal period of peace. This type of inflation occurs when in a less developed economy, the government increases expenditure on development projects which normally have longer gestation period. It means a gap arises between the generation of money income and the final availability of goods. This leads to rise in prices. Second, wartime inflation. Wartime inflation occurs during the period of war. During wartime, unproductive government expenditure increases and the prices rise because the increase in output does not keep pace with the expansion of expenditure. Third, post-war inflation. Post-war inflation occurs after the end of the war when the pent-up demand finds open expression. Heavy taxes which were imposed on the people during war time are withdrawn during post-war period. As a result, the disposable income of the people abruptly increases without increasing the output. Hence, the prices shoot up. Okay. D. On the basis of scope. First, comprehensive inflation. Second, sporadic inflation. First, I will discuss about comprehensive inflation. When the prices of all goods and services increase throughout the economy, it is the case of comprehensive inflation. This leads to rise in the general price level. Second, sporadic inflation. Sporadic inflation is sectoral inflation since instead of affecting whole economy, it affects a few sectors. Okay. In this case, the prices of some goods increase due to certain physical bottlenecks which adversely affect the production of these goods. Sporadic or sectoral inflation can be checked by resorting to the direct price control on the scale of the affected goods. E. On the basis of government reaction. First, upon inflation. Second, suppressed inflation. First, we will discuss about upon inflation. What is upon inflation? If the government takes no steps to check the price rise and the market mechanism is allowed to function without any interference, it is called upon inflation. Under upon inflation, market mechanism performs the function of allocating scarce resources among competing industries. If there is shortage of any particular resources, the market mechanism would raise its prices and allocate it to those industries which can afford to pay higher prices for it. The hyperinflation in Germany after the World War I is an example of open inflation. Suppressed inflation. What is suppressed inflation? If the government actively makes effort to check the price rise through the price control and rationing, it is called suppressed inflation. These measures can check inflation as long as their effect continues. Once these measures are withdrawn, the demand for goods increases and suppressed inflation becomes open inflation. The suppressed inflation means to defer current demand or to divert demand from controlled goods to uncontrolled goods. Okay. Suppressed inflation results in many evils such as profiteering, black marketing, hoarding, corruption, etc. It also leads to the diversion of economic resources from more essential goods to less essential goods. Then on the basis of employment, inflation can be divided into partial inflation and full inflation. What is partial inflation? The price rise as a result of expansion of money supply in the pre-full employment state is called partial inflation. Okay. The increase in the money supply before full employment tends to mobilize the idle resources of the economy and thus leads to the expansion of output and employment. There is only a slight rise in the price level under partial inflation. Second, full inflation. The increase in the money supply after the full employment level leads to full inflation. In this case, output and employment will not increase and there will be uninterrupted rise in prices. G. Other types. Ratchet inflation first, second stagflation. Okay, first I discuss about ratchet inflation. Under this type of inflation, the prices in certain sectors are not allowed to fall even though there is every reason for the prices to fall. Okay, sometimes it so happens that in certain sectors the aggregate demand is excessive and in others it is quite low. In the excess demand sectors, the price will rise, while in the deficit demand sector, the prices should decline. For the prices are not allowed to fall in the deficient demand sector due to the resistance from industrialists and trade unions. Okay. Thus, while the prices rise in the excess demand sectors, they are not allowed to fall in the deficient demand sector. The net result is general rise in prices. This is known as ratchet inflation. Second, stagflation. The simultaneous existence of high rate of inflation and of high unemployment is called stagflation. After World War II, in those countries which pursued stabilization policies with an objective to achieve full employment, unemployment remained relatively high while inflation rate increased. This new phenomenon of stagflation, which started in the developed countries towards the close of 1960s, has now become a worldwide problem. This has also caused a serious crisis in the Keynesian and the Phillips curve theories of inflation. So these are the types of inflation. In next class, I will discuss about inflationary gap. Okay. Thanks for watching.